Hello, I'm Pamela Livingston, a user-centric designer of internet sites and applications and a student designer of websites, web pages, and mobile device apps. My job title, User-Centric Designer, tells you what kind of designer I am. I'm a user advocate kind of designer. When designing, I also look out for the needs of businesses and business stakeholders. To be effective, the design of a web or intranet site or web-based or mobile device application must meet business requirements. To sell a product or service, for example, or to complete internal business transactions. Before beginning a design, I review business or user requirements. Business requirements specify website or web app features and functions needed to meet business objectives. User requirements document users' expectations for the kind of information and functionality that a website or web app should provide. If user requirements haven't been gathered and documented, I ask business stakeholders that user requirements be identified before proceeding. User requirements can be gathered through surveys, user interviews, focus groups, and usability testing. The requirements gathering technique selected depends on time and budget. Online surveys are a quick, inexpensive method for gauging users' interest in an online product or service and for identifying the contexts in which they might use them. Survey questions must be neutral so as not to bias user responses. Questions can ask users to select from choices, rate a feature or function, or type their own responses in a text box. Interviewing current and potential product users is among the best methods for gathering user requirements, as it provides detailed information about users' wants and needs. It's the method I prefer for finding out where users would use the product and in what context, what their goals and motivations are for using it, and whether they have any expectations or current frustrations. I might use focus groups to gather user requirements if interviews with users weren't an option because of scheduling constraints or for some other reason. User experience experts say that focus groups don't always provide requirements best representing users' needs because it's a group setting that doesn't provide context for the product's use. I would use usability testing to refine requirements already gathered and use to design mock-ups or prototypes. Usability testing with mock-ups or prototypes can confirm the effectiveness of in-progress designs, as well as identify any impediments to usability. It can uncover requirements not previously identified and refine those that were not fully documented. What kind of design principles do I think are most important? The default answer to this is, of course, user-centered design. The key design principle for any product used by humans is that it meets their requirements for usefulness and ease of use. But visual design principles are also important because people expect products to be visually appealing. This image of an unusable object demonstrates what I mean. Whoever designed this picture didn't design it so that users could pour from it. Probably, the designer meant it as a joke or as a statement about how even simple common items can be frustrating to use if poorly designed. Probably no one picking up this picture would try to use it. Most people do try to use web page features such as interactive widgets. As a designer, my job is to make a button look and act like a button, and any other interactive widgets to appear and behave as users expect. I also need to make sure that tabs and links tell the user what they'll find when they click. Choosing a technique for creating designs is partly personal preference and partly a response to project needs. Common techniques include sketching and creating wireframes, mock-ups, and prototypes. Each technique has its merits and drawbacks. I always rely on user interface design conventions for placement of common web page elements. Though I've limited experience in this area, I've heard from experts that sketching first is the fastest and best way to design. You sketch out ideas quickly on an available surface. Experts recommend sketching on whiteboard before stakeholders to get their buy-in on design features. Then you photograph the results, take it back to your desk, and refine. Wireframes are another quick design method. They better represent the finished design than sketches do, but they're more time-consuming to produce. That said, they're an excellent way to share ideas about site structure. They show placement of key website features in black and white line drawings. The advantage is that stakeholders reviewing the design focus on site organization rather than on details. Mock-ups show proposed web page design in full color and so better represent what the finished product will look like. They're more time-consuming to produce than the previous two methods, but may be more useful in obtaining stakeholder buy-in. Interactive prototypes, even more effective for this purpose, is another option. What kind of examples can I provide? My first example is a wireframe that I created for a final project in a user-centered design class. The wireframe displays reorganized and relabeled content from a real-world website. Callouts explain the new placement of existing content and the rationale for the organizational change. Here's the real-world website known as forestcamping.com. At first glance, I thought it was a website owned and operated by the U.S. Forest Service. It's not. I chose it for its redesign potential. I reorganized the cluttered homepage to eliminate redundancy and to make high-value content easier to find. Here's a mock-up that I created for a visual aesthetics class assignment. I followed visual design principles based on color theory and the rule of thirds to create the design. Like the wireframe, the mock-up is a redesign of a real-world website. I also added photographs to give the visual reference to the history of the neighborhood that the website represents. Here's the real-world website, ondaweb.com/deepellum. I chose the site for its redesign possibilities, including a restructuring of site content and larger type to increase legibility and therefore usability. What roles on the design team best match my experience and interests? I'm interested in all of it, and I will do my best on any design project to advocate for the user by designing useful, relevant, and attractive user interfaces. Thank you for your time, and adios.